Nigeria's desire to support local content has always been a priority, which is evident in the country's programs and policies. One of such is the Presidential Executive Order 5, centered around planning and execution of projects, promotion of Nigerian content in contracts and science, engineering and technology, which came into force on 2nd February 2018. This is a demonstration of government's belief in the philosophy of local content promotion, especially in science, technology and engineering. Firms and companies incorporated in Nigeria with not less than 50% equity shares held by Nigerians are now mandated to be given preference by all federal ministries, departments and agencies in procurement or contracts. With this development, indigenous contractors as well as suppliers of goods and services are given a margin of preference. In other words, an extra markup on price allowed to any domestic contractor or supplier in an international competitive bidding without being disadvantaged. On Panorama today, we shall take a look at what this executive order is. Can it be part of the shift in the nation's drive towards acceleration to economic growth? We have a guest that we will be discussing this later in the program with. You can follow this news broadcast live on our website at nta.ng/live and on our other social media handles displayed on the screen for updates. I am Henginu John Adams. Thanks for joining us. We will be back. Now, Nigeria's participation at the 79th session of the ongoing United Nations General Assembly recorded success with the support of the United States Chamber of Commerce with a commitment of about $320 million. Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirmed the Tinubu administration's commitment towards mortgage refinancing and women empowerment. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports that this was at a meeting with other members of Nigeria's delegation to strategize on the country's engagement in New York.
A U.S.-Nigeria Executive Business Roundtable hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Nisha Biswal of the American International Development Finance Corporation, announced that with a portfolio of $1 billion, it was investing $200 million in mortgage financing in Nigeria. $100 million has also been earmarked to finance micro, small and medium enterprises in Nigeria, with particular interest in women empowerment. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce also announced that $20 million is for the establishment of a firm processing of cashew nuts in Nigeria. Vice President Kashim Shettima restated commitment to investor-friendly policies, urging investors to give Nigeria the benefit of doubt. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs led other members to brief the Vice President on the activities and itinerary lined up in New York. Apart from President Tinubu's national statement, Vice President Kashim Shettima is also expected to meet with the Secretary General of the United Nations, heads of states, the African, Caribbean and Pacific states, the President of the World Trade Organization, Director General of the International Atomic Agency and multinational companies. The Vice President is also meeting with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and a host of other international partners. From New York, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
With UNGA, the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, OFLAD, has taken its campaign for inclusive education to the global stage, where it called on African government to commit towards universal school meals coverage. This was at a roundtable lunch hosted by Rockefeller Foundation and OFLAD on the margins of the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports that Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, signed the call to action alongside other members of OFLAD, affirming the country's readiness to promote enrollment with school feeding.
From their individual through the We Are Equal campaign, the stage has shifted to New York on the margins of the ongoing 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. The goal of this roundtable launch, hosted in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation, is to, among other things, position the school meals agenda in the G20 engagement of the African Union. A nation that is informed will easily transform, says Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, as he affirms the interest and commitment of President Bola Tinubu to rejig school feeding program in the country.
Because immediately it resumed office, it declared a state of emergency on agriculture, food security. We have to make sure that we're able to grow some food. So with that, the school feeding in Nigeria is being reviewed, because without children having ability to eat, how do you want them to study? There is the early years snack that is being introduced, which are for tots and preschoolers and those in kindergarten. I think they wanted to start with that before we go into the first, primary, we call it primary, which is like the elementary, primary 1 to 3. And they'll start with that. But, the population is not something we can say we have to embrace immediately.
With a surging population faced with climatic challenges, sustainable rollout of the program requires help.
It's something I believe that we really, really want to do so that we can have school enrollment up and then get, most of the children, especially children from the north that are going through certification. And recently, which, it's been in the news with the flooding in Borno State. So it's just an hydra head problems that we are facing. But at the same time, we are not really scared, but we would need all the assistance we can get. And you can, believe in our administration that we are here to work for our people and, and get Nigeria back on its feet.
It's so clear that it provides all the benefits that Your Excellency mentioned. It's not just the nutrition solution. It's a gender solution. It's a climate solution. It's an economic solution.
Their meeting closed with members resolving to do their part in ensuring that every child has access to a nutritious meal that is affordable and planet-friendly. From New York, Adeni Taiwo, NTA News.
Now talking Edo governorship election and security, 6 suspects are in the custody of the police for allegedly being in possession of firearms of different make, a number of BVAS machines and voter cards during the just concluded Edo governorship election. The Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the exercise, Frank Mba, disclosed this during his post-election briefing in Benin City. Goodluck Enaini has details.
IG Frank Mba said the suspects were arrested in various locations across the state and are currently undergoing police interrogation.
We have a total of 6 arrests. That's a summary. We expect this number to shoot up in the course of investigations because we expect that there will be accomplices. There will be people who aided, who abetted, who procured, who facilitated, who sponsored these suspects who were arrested.
The DIG says throughout the exercise, the police and other security agencies recorded no loss of life, assault, or molestation of INEC staff. He also spoke on the post-activities of the police in the state, including confidence-building patrols to protect government facilities and ensure public safety.
We are commencing massive patrols of the state. We are putting in place a strategy that will give rise to high visibility policing.
He appreciates the people of the states for their conduct before, during, and after the exercise, urging them to be law-abiding citizens. In Benin, Goodluck Inaini, NTA News.
We pause here for some messages. More reports when we return. Thanks for being there. For the novel Executive Order 5 set in motion 7 years ago by the federal government and still subsisting to become one of the pillars holding the nation's economic architectural structure, Nigerians need to come to terms with the fact that economic development is with sincerity of purpose and that they are the only catalyst needed to speed up economic growth of the nation. These were the submissions of public analysts while expressing their views on the executive order and its mission in improving the nation's economic development. Lanre Belei tells us more.
Presidential Executive Order 5 is for planning and execution of projects invariably promoting Nigerian contents in technology with local content in information technology as well as fintechs. In engineering, areas of software, solar, civil construction and automobile, and in science, production, pharmaceuticals and laboratory equipment that are locally made are given priority. Federal government has demonstrated its seriousness on this order by mandating all its ministries, departments and agencies to give preference to local content in procurement and contracts. While giving thumbs up to this step by the federal government, public analysts are convinced that the executive order should not be limited to MDAs alone, but government institutions at all levels.
The idea is to stimulate the economy, because every time you buy a foreign product, you are putting your people out of job and you are employing some other people. Because, of course, when you produce and the warehouse is filled to the brim and nobody is buying, production will slow down. Because by the time we begin to patronize, there will be employment, there will be revenue generation, there will be capacity building for the companies.
To help us to defend the value of the local currency. Because by the time we start supporting made in Nigeria, most of the people, it means we are going to reduce the quantum of cash that will be imported into our economy.
They stated further that key to achieving self-reliance and sufficiency through local content development also hinges on the level of patriotism of the people, and government agencies needs to be up and doing, coupled with the civil societies that seek to promote the national pride. In Lagos, Lanre Belei, NTA News.
And to further discuss the Presidential Executive Order 5, I have with me Chris Wogu, a legal practitioner and corporate systems development specialist. Barrister Wogu, you're welcome to Panorama.
Yes, Ingino, it's my pleasure.
Okay, what is executive order and how is it different from a constitution?
Okay, executive order is a directive by usually the government of a nation. It's actually gazetted, it's law, just like the order of the court is law. And so it's something to help in operations, to help, the president has a duty to govern the nation, to deliver on the campaign promises or expectations of the people, because the people had given him the mandate to lead them. So by an executive order, the president hastens that process, which may take a longer time if it has to go through the parliament. So it's something that's administrative in nature, and it's a directive, and it's actually law to be complied with. Now, vis-a-vis the Constitution, you find the Constitution is actually the grand, what the lawyers call the grand norm. It's the law that governs the nation. And any other law, whether it's executive order, whether it's a bylaw, when it becomes inconsistent with the Constitution, it is voided, it is null and void. And then the Constitution is an act of parliament. It's Well, not like ours that was actually bequeathed to us by the military, but even ideally, it's like we, the people. So it's what governs the people. It's even what gives the president the authority, the mandate to actually make executive orders.
Okay, now talking about Executive Order 5, which is primarily around a promotion of local content in engineering, science, and technology. Why do you think these three sectors are key?
Yeah, they are key. They may not be the only key aspects of the nation. And of course, Executive Order 5 will not be the only executive order delivered by either that administration or this administration or any administration. But you know that going forward, you can't circumvent engineering, science, or technology, whether it's in infrastructural development, in construction, in manufacturing, in almost every aspect of development. Science, technology, and engineering are very key. So that it was captured with an executive order, I must say it's quite commendable going forward. The challenge is on implementation.
Okay, talking about the challenge is on implementation. Why do you think implementation will be an issue?
Yes, because one is that there has to be real buy-in. If people see it as a coercion, as something coming from top, or as a political gambit, it could be a challenge. But if we could get our people, especially, let's even start with the ministries, the departments, and the agencies, let there be compliance, because for anything to really move forward in any nation, the public service will be in the forefront. If the public service is not working, you can almost say that the nation is not working. But when the public service picks up, the nation automatically picks up. So if these ministries, these agencies, these departments could really buy into it as a matter of purpose, objective, target, and doing that out of patriotism, and out of the fact that they could see the value, like some of the commentators had delivered in this thing. And then from force it, so what awareness is important, so that people will know it's important to government. When people know that something is important to the leader, they kind of have a way of towing along.
Okay, talking about MDAs buying into this, I'm aware that there are some federal ministries, departments, and agencies that are already on board. So now going down to states and local governments, how can we make them to buy into this without them seeing it as a federal government affair?
Okay, that's important. If they know, like already has been canvassed, that by the time we patronize Hungin, we don't really need an executive order to know that we need to patronize our own. And that when somebody produces, it may not be in its utmost best, but in patronizing, encouraging that product, it begins to get its strength, and ultimately with time begins to compete with the best. So if we would see that there is real need to save foreign exchange by building our own internal capacity, and which is really what the states and the local governments are there for. They are there to make sure that the government is felt at the grassroots, and part of it is to patronize this, because there will be employment. There are too many reasons to make them see that it's a non-negotiable part of their administration to patronize and really comply with this Executive Order 5.
Okay, now away from government, talking about the private sector, how can we make it attractive for them? For example, using made in Nigerian automobiles and others.
Great. Now let's look at it two prongs. One are the people, the producers. We need to encourage them to be producing. It's not like people are not producing. We see it all over. In fact, at some point, you see people from overseas come to take our talents, and it goes offshore. So we need to get financial institutions, banks, oil and gas companies, corporations, to encourage these people. Let's invest into them. Let's make it a major aspect of CSR, corporate social responsibility, so that they can do more, they can be encouraged, they can mass produce. And then we need awareness to get our people to patronize them. If we can even get to the level where we can give national honors to people that produce, I think it will take us far, because when people know that something is important to government, everybody wants the favor of government, they have a way of complying.
All right, before I let you go, Executive Order 5 and harnessing the nation's local talent. How can this be achieved?
It's by, like we've already said, continuous engagement. I think that we will soon have a trade fair on. A lot of fairs will need to be done. Religious organizations where people congregate. The people, the preachers need to find a way and inject these things. I think it's all part of building the capacity of the people that have put their confidence in those people, so that we need to do this, and we need to really rise as a nation and say, this is what we want to do. It's almost 7 years, and we are almost 64 years as a nation. So it's not early enough. It's already almost belated. But it's good to wake up now and engage and begin to patronize our own local content.
Thank you very much, Barrister Chris Wogu, for sharing your thoughts with us.
It's my pleasure, Hinguna.
Let's now join the sports desk for updates of stories from the sporting world. That's it on Panorama from the Lagos Network Center of the Nigerian Television Authority. Thanks for watching. I am Hinginu John Adams.